We've seen a lot of those games this year, have we not? We've seen so many of those games where things seem bad, then seem good, and then they seem bad and good and bad. And tonight, when Cade York doinks that 33-yarder, by the way, that's why he's been gone from so many NFL rosters. He can hit the 59-yarders last week when nothing matters, but in the clutch, he's not good. But when that happened, we all collectively bashed our heads into a wall, did we not? We thought it was over. We thought, here we freaking go again. But for the first time, the football gods throw us a bone. The Bengals get out of there. They go to overtime, get a 30-24 win over the Denver Broncos. Their playoff hope still alive. It will not matter what happens on Sunday. We want certain things to happen on Sunday, but no matter what, the Cincinnati Bengals are in playoff contention when Week 18 rolls around, which seems pretty impossible just about a month ago when the Bengals were sitting at 4-8, but now they've won 4 in a row. Good God, what a season this has been. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Thanks for spending part of this 2024 season with me. The Bengals are still alive, man. They are still alive. Joe Burrow is firmly in the MVP conversation. He planted his flag tonight. We'll say that. There's a lot of that going around this year. He planted his name in the MVP conversation, solidified it tonight. I mean, this is a real thing now where the Bengals might, it doesn't matter what happens at this point. He's going to get votes. We'll get into that a little bit. And Sunday, by the way, just became a really big game, or a really big day with some big games. The Bengals have a win in their back pocket, their best win of 2024. They finally beat a decent team, a team with a winning record. They get a big win at home, and we can all take a big breath, can we not? Just one of those games where it felt like a playoff game right from the start. Like, you could tell how loud on TV it was. I was watching at home. It was loud, man. You could feel it. You could feel it from Paycor into your living room. A 4:30 start on a Saturday felt like one of those old Andy Dalton versus the Texans wild card games, because that's when those always started. It felt good. After the season this team has had, it felt damn good to just get one of those wins, to just have one of those games where you have the roller coaster ride the entire time, to finally have one go their way was something this fan base needed this year, because we have suffered through a lot. You know the games. I'm not going to go through them anymore. We know the ones that have been there, and a play here and a play there have been the difference. And tonight, it felt like that 33-yard doink was the difference. That'll probably be the last field goal we ever see Cade York kick for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I vow to move forward with that and not mention his name again, because there's really no need to. Let's start with this. Tonight was one of those games where it was a national audience. Everyone's watching. Standalone game, 4:30 on a Saturday. Everyone just did a million things for Christmas. No one wants to leave the house. Usually on Saturday, people have plans. Not on this Saturday. Not on December 28th. People are chilling. They're worn out from the week. And hey, you got a good NFL game on. Let's flip it on. Most people probably tuned in thinking, Bengals have one of the best receivers in the league. I don't get to see him that often. Let's check him out. And let me be clear, Jamar Chase is the most talented Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver. He might be the most talented wide receiver the franchise has ever had, and that's saying something. He might be the most talented. I'll say that. He is the most talented receiver in the NFL right now. That said, he is not the most clutch receiver that the Cincinnati Bengals have right now. That is Tee Higgins. He did it again. In a big game situation, he came into this game questionable. He's been banged up, as he always is. But he came in questionable, 50-50, catches 11 balls for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. Potentially his last game at Paycor Stadium. Goes out like a boss. Walk-off winner for Tee Higgins. And when you look at tonight, how big this game was, you remember the Vikings game last year. How phenomenal he was there. Oh, by the way, remember the Super Bowl? If the Bengals hang on, he's probably the MVP of that game. And I went back and looked. Both AFC Championship games that the Bengals have played in Kansas City, he's led them in receiving yards both times. Jamar's the best receiver they've got. T, though, is Mr. Dependable. He is the most clutch receiver they have in the big games. And that's not to say Jamar didn't show up tonight. He was excellent himself. He had 9 catches for 102 yards, and he's Jamar freaking Chase, and he is taking a co-starring role in this one rather than the lead. That's how good Tee Higgins was tonight, and I've been on the fence. If you listen to this show, I've been on the fence about what you do about Tee Higgins because he misses a handful of games every year, and he almost did again today. But when push comes to shove, when you need him, the guy is there. He's a beast. And Joe Burrow, Bengals quarterback, if you've never heard of him, he said a few weeks ago that he is a need. Tee Higgins is a need on this team. We found out why tonight. 65,000 plus saw it live at Paycor in Cincinnati. Millions saw it on TV because everyone was home today. Everyone was worn out. And now everyone's going to say, if the Bengals don't re-sign him this offseason, what are you doing? You had a good night. I had a good night. Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor had a good night, but no one had a better night than Tee Higgins. He made a lot of money. He went out and showed the world that the Cincinnati Bengals don't just have one elite receiver. They've got 2. He was the MVP of this game. 11 catches for 131 and 3 touchdowns. Get out of town. So there's a lot with the playoffs and stuff, but moving forward, one thing we know that will need to be addressed is what to do with Tee Higgins. Can you ask for more than that? Can you ask for more than that against a pretty good Denver defense? Comes out, balls out. Yeah, he's going to miss 3 or 4 games a year, but look at the ones he's played in. Both AFC championships and the Super Bowl, he's led them in receiving yards. 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Tonight, beast again. When your back is against the wall, that's who Joe went to. 3 touchdowns to keep the Bengals' playoff hopes alive. I think tonight was a night where you look at what happened out there, and the Bengals front office says, yeah, we want that guy here. Do what it's got to be done to make it happen. I mentioned we were all happy, and we were, and we are. It's now 10 o'clock on Saturday night. I'm having myself a nice cool glass of water. Maybe some of you are celebrating a little harder. I don't blame you for that. I'm just worn out. I'm crushing myself with the diet this week, as we all do on Christmas. We were all happy tonight, but at the same time, boy, were we just a play or 2 away from total meltdown. And that's the NFL for you, and that's been the Bengals in particular in 2024. There was a lot of ugly out there tonight. The Bengals left a lot of points on the field in the first half, and there's only one guy I can look at for that, and that's Zach Taylor. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but once again, Joe Burrow saves Zach Taylor's butt. Once again, he makes some questionable mistakes. When Denver gets the ball back with 129 left, is no one else thinking, maybe kick one of those field goals in the first half. Maybe on 3rd and short and then 4th and short, when Joe Burrow is carving up the defense in the first quarter, you don't hand the ball off to Chase Brown up the middle twice. Chase Brown's awesome. You love him. I love him. We'll have more on him later. But he's not a ground and pound guy. He's a find a hole and shoot out of a cannon guy. What are we doing there? What's going on there? You left points on the board in the first half, and it probably doesn't go to overtime if the Bengals just take advantage of one of those opportunities. Somewhere between 6, let's even say Cade York misses one of those. The Bengals leave somewhere between 3 and 14 points on the field in the first half. And I'm not saying it's all on Zach Taylor. Jamar Chase drops a touchdown. You never see that. But there were just a lot of things tonight. I mean, they went into the fourth quarter tonight with 1 timeout left. 1 timeout left in a gotta-have-it game. So he did the things he needed to do. The Bengals come out with a win, and of course, winning solves all. But boy, all the concerns we had, and yeah, you beat a Super Bowl winning head coach, you beat a team that's hotter than fish grease coming down the stretch. But all the concerns that certain people, including myself, have had about Zach Taylor this year, that win over Denver did nothing to get rid of those. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but I just got to point it out. Giving Denver that much time, there was no continuity on that final score in regulation. Chase Brown slides, he gets hurt, and then after that, you score on the next play. So what was the point in sliding and to begin with? I don't blame you for not putting Cade York out there in that situation, but it's just the inconsistency there. This was by the way, this was a playoff game for the Bengals. If you win, your season stays alive. If you lose, you play a meaningless game in Pittsburgh next week. This was a playoff game. I don't know about you guys. I've watched a hell of a lot of football. Playoff games are close. They often come down to a field goal, and at that point in the game, you knew this game was going to be close. You take the 3 when you can. early on. You capitalize on those opportunities when you can. And I like the aggressiveness at times. If you've listened to that early in the season, I didn't think he was aggressive enough. But when it comes to these tight games, they're so often decided by a field goal or one score. It went to overtime tonight. How have you not been around the block enough to know that in tight games like this, you got to take the points? And I get it. Your defense is stunk. You think you need touchdowns, not field goals. But man, it just seemed like there were a lot of preventable mistakes tonight. Left points on the board, one timeout remaining at the end of the third quarter. You have Chase Brown slide, and then the next play, you just punch it in. That's just inconsistent, right? So what was the plan there? So fortunately, they avoid that pit. But man, if they lose tonight, Zach Taylor's seat is smoldering. He was kind of the opposite of T. He got in front of a national audience, and whoops, he got bailed out tonight by an all-time Tee Higgins performance, an all-time Joe Burrow performance. Joseph Lee Burrow, my God, is he in the MVP conversation, as he should be. Joe goes 39 of 49 for 412 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, 49 throws against a really good defense. Let's look at this. I want to see where they were at turnover-wise. Denver's a really good defense. Joe throws it 49 times and was darn near perfect. Just kind of unheard of, the stretch he's having right now. He threw his 40th. He's up to 42 touchdowns thrown on the season right now. I looked it up. There are only 2 quarterbacks in NFL history to throw 40-plus touchdowns in a season and miss the playoffs. They are Dan Marino, who did it, I believe, in 1986, and Drew Brees, I think that year was, I know I've got it right here, 2012. So Dan Marino threw 44 touchdowns in 86, went 8-8 and missed the playoffs. Drew Brees threw 43 touchdowns in 2012, went 7-9 and missed the playoffs. Every other quarterback, and I think there's 9 total quarterbacks, 12 total quarterbacks now, or 11 total quarterbacks now, one of the two. Every other season that one has had, of course, Peyton Manning had a few, Tom Brady had a few, Aaron Rodgers had a few. All of those other ones made the playoffs except Brees in 2012 and Dan Marino in 86. So, Joe, let's hope you don't join that club. But let's just put it at that. Let's hope you don't join that club. He was sacked 7 times, by the way. So just getting walloped back there, getting cracked around back there, and still throws for 412 yards, wins the game, does the gritty. What a night, man. He's in the MVP conversation. Joe Burrow is the only player with 250-plus passing yards and 3 touchdowns in 8 consecutive NFL games in the history of the sport. He's the only one to ever do that. Tom Brady, I think, did it in 6 or 7. It's unreal what he's doing. It is unreal what he's doing. The only other players to ever do it, I think, 6 or more times, won MVP. So the MVP talk is real with Joe Burrow, and it should be. I've said this for a long time. The word valuable, like definition, is what do you mean to your team? What do you bring to your team? Don't get me wrong, there are other worthy candidates. But are the Bengals close to the playoffs without Joe Burrow? No. I mean, Lamar, he's got as good a case as any. He's been awesome. But the Ravens and John Harbaugh have always found ways to stay in the mix before Lamar got there. Again, valuable. If it's most spectacular player, if it's most mesmerizing player, biggest playmaker, sure, Lamar, Josh Allen, put him in there. And of course, Burrow's in there too. But when you're talking about how much a player means to their team, Joe Burrow's the top. He's number 1. I don't even think it's a question. So yeah, the standard's always kind of been you got to get into the playoffs, and for a long time, and more often than not, you really have to get one of those number 1 seeds. But if we're going by definition, and they don't, but if they are of most valuable player, who gives the most value to their team, then it's Joe Burrow, because they're not close. Now, I do think the Bengals have to get into the playoffs for him to win, or have a shot, I should say, at winning MVP. And the way that the Cincinnati Bengals can get in the playoffs is the following. So, all right, they have to win. Well, let's start here. Here's what has to happen. The Colts and Dolphins each have 2 games left. They have to lose one of their next 2. Each of them do. So Miami is at Cleveland. Tua Tagovailoa is doubtful. And then they're at the Jets. So 2 colder weather games, although it's not going to be terrible in Cleveland tomorrow. Dolphins have to lose one of those. The Colts have to lose one of their two. They are at the Giants in Week 17, and they host Jacksonville in Week 18. So, I don't know. Anthony Richardson out for the Colts tomorrow. Joe Flacco will play. We'll see, man. I mean, Colts stink. I mean, Miami wouldn't bother me. Denver wouldn't bother me. Colts are bad. I got to think they would lose one of those two. Although, maybe not. I don't know. And then Miami, I just don't trust them in cold weather. Now, in addition to that, the Bengals have to beat Pittsburgh next week. Pittsburgh needs to beat the Bengals in order to have a shot at the AFC North. The Bengals need to beat Pittsburgh in order to have a shot at the playoffs. And then, oh, by the way, the Chiefs have to beat the Broncos. There's a lot. Really not a lot. Miami has to lose one. Colts have to lose one. Bengals have to win their last one. Denver has to lose their last one. Those four things. And I've said this before, I don't see a situation where the Chiefs, even if they rest their starters, which I know they will for most of the game, I shouldn't say I know, but I'm very confident they will for most of the game. Those backups, man, those are guys coached by Andy Reid. Those are NFL players who have been champing at the bit to get out there and show people how good they are. They are fresh. They are ready to roll. And Denver's coming off just an emotional loss. They'll get an extra day, but I mean, the Chiefs guys are going to see have had an extra year. They have an extra season. They've been frothing at the mouth to do this all year. You think they don't want to go out there and put some good stuff on tape? You think Andy Reid's not going to have them ready? Now, the irony, of course, of the Kansas City Chiefs needing to win for the Cincinnati Bengals to get into the playoffs, it is all right there for you, isn't it? But that's the way it is. And hey, man, if you're looking at a team, some of the other options would be the Chargers, who I think are now locked into the 6th seed, or the Raiders, who suck forever. So the Chiefs' backups are not a bad team to have playing Denver when you need Denver to take a loss. We'll see what happens. The Bengals did what they need to do. No matter what happens on this Sunday, the Bengals are still in playoff contention. And hey, it's fun. I talked about this earlier in the year. Some people were, talking about draft picks and draft position. Get out of here. Get out of here. Jay Morrison, the great Jay Morrison, covers this team for BengalsTalk.com, says Joe Burrow's 3-yard pass touchdown to Tee Higgins was the first offensive touchdown in overtime in franchise history. That's pretty unreal. Tonight was the first time the Bengals have ever scored an offensive touchdown in franchise history. Get out of town. Let's get into some quick hits here. I've said it a few times before, but man, that felt like a playoff game. Doesn't that remind you? That's kind of what I was getting to there. That's why I'll never root for draft position. There's no draft that I'll ever be as excited about as I just was watching that game tonight. Get out of town with that. That was fun. That was a good reminder. That was something you think the fans needed it? You saw the players after the game. If you haven't, there's plenty of videos online. They needed that, man. They needed that going into this offseason. And the offseason, maybe, or the postseason, whatever it is, they needed that. Chase Brown, the Bengals running back, who's really just coming on this last month or so. He does have a sprained ankle. He missed the rest of the game after that happened, after that slide, the awkward slide. That sucked. And who knows? We'll see about that. Some sprained ankles take 4 to 6 weeks. Some seemingly heal in a week. So there are different grades. Is it high? Is it low? I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like saying, you have a stomach ache. Sometimes you ate a bad apple. Sometimes you need your appendix removed. There's varying levels of sprained ankles. Speaking of injuries, Orlando Brown Jr. came back tonight, and the Bengals left tackle, he told reporters he has a broken bone in his fibula. That is the bone that between your knee and your hip, that massive leg bone. He said he has a broken bone in his fibula, which is apparently fused to his tibia, his lower main leg bone, because of how quickly he grew as a child. So you want to talk about a tough dude who, the Bengals gave that guy a lot of money. That's the kind of guy you want to give a lot of money to. 6'8", 340 pounds. His father played in the NFL. He's playing on a broken freaking leg. So, just shout out to him. Defensively, I haven't even talked about the defense. They were awesome. If the Bengals can hold opponents to 24 points, they are going to win a lot of games. Cedric Johnson had a sack. Josh Newton was mostly solid, got beat on a touchdown. He's a 5th-round rookie going up against an established NFL receiver in Cortland Sutton. Can't be mad about that. Overall, the defense was awesome. They'll win a lot more games. They'll win a lot more often than not with with holding the opponent to 24 points. Playoff P, baby. Jermaine Pratt with a massive interception as the Bengals kind of traded turnovers there toward the end of regulation, and 2 3-and-outs in overtime. I mean, come on. And it would have been easy. It's so easy with this defense because they folded late so many times this year. They get that big touchdown with 8 seconds left. It would have been easy. Like, had the Bengals just folded in overtime, we all would have shrugged our shoulders and said, yep. But no, man, they got back together. And that's a good sign moving forward, whether it's the postseason, whether it's the offseason. They need some sort of confidence. There's a lot of young guys on that defense, and you got to get them going. So, good to see. Just good to kind of see, they've not had a lot to smile about this year. This was on Cam Taylor-Britt. Didn't hear his name till the third quarter tonight. He's hung around. He's hung in there. He's figured some things out. Maybe it's Lou putting him in better position. I don't know. But this defense tonight, again, they were playing the toughest teams in the league seemingly every week for 2 months, or the hottest teams in the league. So to see them get after it, Cedric Johnson, the third-day rookie from Ole Miss, I think he was a 5th or 6th round pick. He had a big sack on Bo Nix. Miles Murphy helped on that one. There's just a lot of young guys who were coming on these last few weeks. I saw McKinley Jackson with a nice rundown tonight. It's good to see as we look, kind of looking at the box score here. What jumps out? I mean, Mike Gesicki, you got to bring that guy back. 10 receptions for 86 yards. Get out of town. Andre Yosivas, 3 catches, 59 yards. I believe that was a career high for him. Yeah, just a good game. Denver swung for the fences. Sean Payton, awesome coach. Won a Super Bowl. He's doing a lot with this team. They were hot coming in there, and it's awesome. Now the Bengals, they're probably going to play at 4 o'clock on Sunday, and they'll go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh needs to beat the Bengals to win the AFC North. The Bengals need to beat the Steelers to have a shot at the playoffs. So here we freaking go. What more do you want? Going into Pittsburgh with a lot on the line in Week 18, a chance for the Bengals again. As painful as this season has been, it's a chance for this team and for this head coach to win back-to-back games against Super Bowl winning head coaches. Say, hey, everything you've seen this season, it was rough, but we're on the way back up. We had a little dip. We're going to get back there. Go win the game. Go win the game. Put it in the Chiefs' hands. Put it in the others' hands. We'll see what happens. But that was fun. And it's always going to be fun to play Pittsburgh. And we won't know. I can just about guarantee you that the Bengals and Broncos will play at 4 o'clock next week. All the meaningful games will be at 4 o'clock next Sunday. There's going to be some games that are like, 3-15 versus 2-46. Those games will be the 1 o'clock games. Let's see what we got there. So, yeah, you got I guess there's not a lot of terrible ones. Yeah, really, Week 18, pretty much all, I guess San Francisco and Arizona won't matter, but that'll probably still be a 4 o'clock game. Are they going to start it at 10 a.m. local time? Yeah, there might be I'm looking here. Should Carolina, Atlanta's still in the thick of it, Washington? I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe they will put multiple at 1 because there's not really enough games to fill the 1 o'clock schedule. A lot of these teams, I guess Houston will be locked into the 4, so there'll be a 1 o'clock at Tennessee. Probably the same with the Chargers in Vegas. Okay, they can probably make it work. I take that back. We'll see, man. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll have another episode out sometime this week, probably Thursday, as the Bengals get ready to go take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you have anything to say, please put it in the YouTube comments. I forgot to check them before I recorded this. I like to kind of include those when possible if there's any that I like when other people make points that make me feel good. Bull Block Party says, I can't wait to see your show take off with 2 hearts. That's nice. Joe Wood says, very good show. Got to grow it, dude. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Love it. Yeah, it's the coolest. I'll do better. I'm bad at the interaction on social media. A lot of that's because I'm spending most of my time hanging out with my 2-year-old, and I will continue to do that, but I'll also try to get back to people. I appreciate you showing up and showing out. If you do like the show, give it a like, give it a rating, give it a comment. I will answer it sooner than later, and appreciate it. The show's called In the Jungle. My name is Matt Edwards. I am at Matt Edwards on the website formerly known as X. Appreciate it. Bengals still in the playoffs. Let's get after it. Week 18 in Pittsburgh with a lot on the line. After this season, you can't want much more than that. We'll see you later in the week as the Cincinnati Bengals, the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals, fight for their playoff lives.